welcome back to another episode. You're listening to On the Cusp of 30s, and I'm your host, Katie. Let's navigate the chaos of adulting together. Today's guest is none other than Seattle content producer Connor Kaysen, also known as Find Me in Seattle on social media. We actually met years ago when he co-hosted in-person foodie meetups around the Seattle area, and I've been following his content journey ever since. At the time of this conversation, Connor has over 60,000 followers across his YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram, and he's been highlighting Seattle businesses for years with his vlog-style content. I wanted to know how his unique philosophy on storytelling is like and his incredible dedication for the last few years of documenting stories almost daily. You'll also find out exactly how he partners with businesses with his marketing services, and he shares his reflections looking back at his 20s. Our conversation starts with the news of losing his job became a turning point for him, the start of what was about to be 5 years of making content creation his focal point.
Yeah, it was at the Absinthe Bar. And I think I had two parties that I had to, or two events that I should go to that night. Ugly sweater party. So yeah, because it must have been in like the December timeline, because I knew it was right at the end of the year. And I've seen this a few times in my career now, where the worst thing happens. You get fired from your job, gotten laid off, I've lost projects, lost clients, whatever it is. And like some of the best ways that I've learned to bounce back is like I have to jump in quickly to some creative, engaging process to kind of like help get over that hump and just realize like it's going to be okay, right? I still have community, I have people, I have friends, I have a network, I can keep pushing forward. And so I hadn't even told my wife. We went to the Breakfast Club event. We had a good time, drank all this absinthe. And then I remember driving home and be like, oh yeah, and Amanda, I'm no longer working there. And she was just like, oh my goodness, like what happened? There's another story that's related to that. End of 2021, all through 2021, I was working for the startup. We were building this app, this video-based app, and they had recruited me to uh, build the app, project manage it, design everything, create strategy, and license all of my content. And I got a call on the last week of December 2021, like between Christmas and New Year's. And it was it was that week it was snowing here in Seattle. And the investor, CEO of the company was like, we're shutting down the project. They hadn't opened up the app in 3 months. And they're like, we're shutting it down because we need to focus on some other stuff. And that was 6 figures of income that I lost on that phone call. And I immediately went out to Kubota Garden and made this video while it was snowing at Kubota Garden, just about like, you don't get to see that beautiful park very often, like in that majestic atmosphere. And there was nobody there because Seattle shuts down when it's snowing. And I made this video just about being there and about it snowing and how pretty it is. It's still pinned to the top of my Instagram or my TikTok account if you're interested in seeing that. And that creative push, like making that video on the same day that I got let go from there, really like pushed me forward in moving forward with my content creation career and focusing more on storytelling.
Has content creation or anything similar to that always been a part of your life?
I've always been very entrepreneurial. I was the kid with the lemonade stand, or when I remember every Halloween with my neighbors, we would do a fundraiser and haunted house, like in my neighbor's garage. We are like 12 years old, and it was like a canned food drive, and we'd make this silly haunted house. So it was always like going after, or I was always inspired to create businesses. And I used to say that I was the least creative person that I knew. I never thought of myself as artistic. I said I didn't have an artistic bone in my body. And so for me to evolve into like pretty much an artist is very interesting and not at all what I anticipated. But as I've just invested so much into creating things on my phone and taking photos and filming things, it's just naturally kind of come out from me. Just over the last 10 years that I've been, let's call it, say, an Instagram creator, the shift from what it used to be to what it is now, we've seen how many people have struggled to make the adjustment. And there's pretty much like a whole new family of influencers and creators that have adopted the reels, but some of the people who really thrived on the photo days of Instagram haven't been able to keep up with the new storytelling platforms. It just continues to be challenging. And I think a lot of my success being self-employed has come from being able to adapt and change. In context to the theme of this show, one of the things that I think was most beneficial to me starting and growing my career while I was in my 20s was it wasn't intentional, it was just natural in me, but constant pursuit of meeting new people and exposing myself to lots of people's work, opinions, lifestyles, inspirations, find out like what they want to be and talking about their aspirations in life and what they want to accomplish. I just fed off that human connection. And so something as small as, hey, let's get coffee in the morning, or let's meet at happy hour, or let's go on a walk in the park, just so I can like spend an hour and get to know you better. I think that paid off a lot for me in the long run.
I am really curious, like the behind the scenes stuff. So if you don't mind sharing, I'd love to hear. I want to know, when you build rapport with small businesses, how do you go about doing that?
Rapport is very interesting, right? Because that's all about trust and earning the trust. And so a lot of times I approach a business without talking with, like, I just approach them as a customer, right? I go and I spend money and I eat at the place. And I don't say that I'm creating anything most of the time, because I'm not committed to creating something. Like, the story has to come out of the experience and I'm just there to discover. But I usually will ask questions to the server or the manager, or if the owner's there and I know who they are, I'll ask for them and just be like, hey, can you tell me the story about how you got here, why you started this business, what inspired the food? And that's when I come as a customer. But asking those questions is the best thing that I do to actually learn about who they are. And I don't think they get asked those questions as much as I think that they would, because I ask every business owner like the same set of questions, more or less, about like, how did we get here? Right? Like, how it takes a lot to open up, especially a retail front. It takes a lot financially, and you've got to have consistent sales, and you got to build a customer base, and you can't just start a retail business, right? You really have to have a proof of concept, established customer base, or access to financing in some type of way to get in there. And so I just love finding out about the grind to get to that area. Answering questions that let people tell their story and talk about themselves is a natural way to get people to like you. I think that's like a really strong sales tactic is the best salesperson says the least amount of words, because if you can let the other person talk a lot, they will naturally leave the conversation thinking better of you, because they usually enjoy hearing themselves and they love sharing their story, whatever it is. And that just helps build some trust. And then over the years, my content has been extremely impactful for a lot of people now. And so that has been like the 1-2 punch. Like, oh, not only do we really like Connor, he was really friendly when he was here. He was really nice. But his content like made a distinct impact on customers showing up the following week. And so that word has also spread. To give everyone kind of a overall story of how I operate my business. So Find Me in Seattle is a marketing consulting company. And I have my own channel where I get to be creative and I tell stories that is really about seeing Seattle through my eyes and exploring the city and getting to know these people. And by creating these videos and creating this content, that has become a portfolio for what I do for other businesses. So I work with dozens of different types of businesses around Seattle, and I take my style and I incorporate their stories and I make videos for them to post on their channel. And then if they want, they can also utilize the reach that I have at Find Me in Seattle, but that's kind of like a separate cost from the service that I provide creating these videos. And I do everything with my phone. So that is like really the unique part of my business that I'm realizing is I show up to these clients. If I'm working with a grocery store and I'm meeting the produce manager and we're talking about all the seasonal vegetables and fruits, I show up with my phone, usually on a tripod, and I have a microphone in my backpack, and that's it. I don't bring in any fancy lighting. I don't bring in big audio equipment. I very rarely use lav mics. And my whole goal there is to minimize the intensity of the production, because it's the only way to get the produce manager to feel comfortable in delivering some of this information that I need to get. And then the goal is in that couple hour session to create a bunch of TikToks, right? And so it's once again asking all of those questions that I asked those business owners and trying to find little stories that we can tell in some type of 1 minute narrative. And yeah, in that session, so more or less, the primary thing that I sell is the marketing consulting, the strategy, the ideation, but then creating the actual videos. And clients book me out for an entire day. And what that is an in-person session, usually in the morning for 2 to 4 hours. And then I have a block of time that I or my assistant does editing for them. So at the end of the day, not only did you get a batch of coaching to learn about Instagram or learn how to post on Reels or learn about trends or learn what trending audio is going on, ask about ads, whatever it is that's going on. But then also the creation side, where a couple days later, I'm going to send you a drive folder and it's like, here is 8 TikToks that we made, like that you can post for the week or for the month. And having those 2 punches of like the consulting and the creation has become like a very unique business style. But I stick out a lot because I just show up on my phone and a microphone. It's very low production, but I think that fits very well on the current state of social media because it looks like everything else. The reason why I shoot it on the phone is because when you're swiping through TikTok or through Instagram Reels, you're seeing 9 out of 10 videos are made on the phone. So there's a production value that you're used to seeing. And then when you see that high production thing, sometimes it looks so salesy. It looks like an ad. And so people tend to swipe away from that because it's overproduced. And so I've gone with the exact opposite tactic, and like the things that go the most viral now, are the low production thing, the people holding up their phone and just talking to the camera and posting it really quick. Those are the things that really pop because it's relatable. And I've just like fully embraced that mentality and created that into a service.
Can you walk me through a little bit of like, your thought process when you first started Find Me in Seattle up until like now? How has it evolved for you?
Yeah, so I have always had a connection with local business owners and specifically local restaurant owners. My parents, when I was very young, owned a restaurant. And so by the time I became, a child who knew what was going on, they didn't own the restaurant anymore. But my entire family, I'm one of 6 children. We all had jobs. Our first jobs were all at the restaurant, and 3 of us actually all had our first job at the same restaurant. It was very much like back. I grew up in California, and you could get your work permit at 15 and a half, and you could start working at 16. And so like the day after my 16th birthday, I got this job in a restaurant, and I've worked through restaurants kind of throughout college and post-college. And I always just had this connection for people who were crazy enough to open a restaurant and try to run that kind of business, because I think that business is extremely difficult. It is very rarely financially rewarding. It's it's hard to make money as a restaurant. And I always admire people who, what I say, like are crazy enough to go after that kind of dream. And so it just made sense for me to start making content about restaurants because I was selling to them on door to door. And I just felt like I had this kinship with the struggle that they were going through. And one of my favorite restaurant owners in Seattle, his name is Kay. He runs a Japanese ramen shop in Wallingford on 45th called Yoroshiku. And he was one of like the first restaurant owners who embraced me and was just like, hey, like you're just this kid who's walking in trying to make things happen with these startups and these businesses and these videos. And he just always saw like, oh, he liked me. And as I learned his story, he was a student at UW. At the time, like teriyaki was having its moment in Seattle, and there wasn't a lot of ramen shops at the time. And so he graduated from UW, moved back to Japan, where he was from, because he was an exchange student, learned more about ramen and cooking ramen, and they moved back to Seattle and opened this ramen shop. And he had like one of the first like big ramen shops here in the city, and it continues to run. And I realized his food tastes better because I know that story. Just from understanding that. And that was the first time it clicked for me where, oh, if I share the interesting stories of these people and these businesses, people will like their food more. And that was one of like the first unlocks for me. That was like, oh, if I tell these stories about these people, their restaurants will do better. People will want to seek those places out. I have so many stories about creating content because I work with so many businesses. My days are very interesting because I haven't created a niche. The story I now tell that's really popular is just the power of social media, and I can't take all the credit for their success. But there's this human composting business in Auburn called Return Home. It's when they're a funeral home. When you pass away, instead of cremating you, they'll turn you into a bag of mulch and dirt and compost that you can like plant around your garden or spread in the forest somewhere. And it's a really interesting business, kind of scary, kind of terrifying. A lot of people are put off just by talking about death. But their business has grown immensely. They're going to be a very big business all through the success of TikTok and all these TikTok videos they made. And they've been featured on every magazine, newspaper, TV show, news show in the country. And they have had this hyper growth in their business all because of educating people through TikTok. And it's absolutely amazing. But the story that I've been telling lately is about this Rainier Teriyaki restaurant. My most successful video I've had this year was this video I did at Rainier Teriyaki. And sadly, the owner of Rainier Teriyaki was shot in his restaurant at the beginning of the year. And 3 months later, they reopened the restaurant. It was reopened by the owner's son, his wife, and his brother. And I went there. It was the first or second day it was open. It was really empty, very slow. People hadn't known. They didn't have social media. They weren't on there. And I just made this video from the parking lot and was like, people need to come. Like, teriyaki is a big deal in the city. And this place had a tragic moment happen to them. I think that the city should come in and give them a big hug, right? And just come buy food from them. And it absolutely went bananas. Within 2 hours of me posting the video, I got tagged with people who went to the restaurant. And all in that time, so they were sold out for weeks. They were selling out multiple times a day, like having to close after lunch, do prep all over again, and open for dinner. Yeah. And I mean, got tagged hundreds, if not thousands of times from all these people from all over the city.
Oh my gosh.
It was covered on all the radio stations, all the news channels. Yeah, went all over, and it severely impacted their business. All in the while, they didn't even know what my name was, who my name was, because I talked to him in the beginning, and he was like, I don't want to be featured on camera. When I told him like, hey, I'm going to post this video, you should check it out. And so he didn't even know what my name was. I showed up a week later because I knew it was just insane. And I remember walking in to get lunch, and immediately he like ran over, and he was like, you're the guy who made that video. Right? He was like, I don't know what your name is. Like, I don't know even who you are, but you made this video and it like completely changed our business and like brought all these blessings to their teriyaki restaurant. And it was just like such a cool, just a very rewarding thing
to see. How much one video that you posted really changed the trajectory, right? For that business.
Exactly. And we had no personal connection. They didn't even know who I was. All they knew was all of a sudden a lot of people were coming into the restaurant, and a bunch of people kept just showing them the phone and be like, "Oh, I found out about you because of this TikTok, because of this Instagram reel." It's just like so amazing that you can positively impact somebody's life in that way because of a simple video that I made.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you shared that story, and I'm so glad that people resonated and were taking action and supporting the business because of it. I think back to the Seattle Breakfast Club and kind of like your origins of, well, maybe it wasn't your origins of community building, but it was certainly one that I partook and got to know you through. I wanted to reflect back on your experience as a co-host and then like how it's like influenced your later approach to like building community.
When I created the name Find Me in Seattle, I always had this vision of how cool would it be if I showed up to a place and I posted online or I did whatever and I said, I'm at this place, first 10 people who show up get a free slice of pizza or whatever it is. Like, could I actually drive traffic in real time? And so I met with this woman, her name is Paige, and we just talked about like doing, kind of trying to almost embody that concept and doing these events that we could bring the Seattle foodie community together through Instagram specifically. And what the ethos of the meetup was we were going to sell tickets, and we took all of that money from the ticket sales and gave it to the business to kind of fund whatever service, dinner, lunch, breakfast, brunch, whatever it is that they were providing. The hope was that everyone who showed up was going to take a picture and post it on Instagram and tag them on their story. So the hope is if we had 30 people show up to this place, we could create some virality for the restaurant to like get the name out there. And it's very similar to what a PR company would do. If a PR company is working with a restaurant, they say, hey, let's have an influencer event and have all these people come in and share the story. It's the exact same concept. I think we approached it a different way because the goal was to show up and make friends and meet other people that you might know online who love food, love sharing food, and happen to all pull out their phones and take the photo, right? It was a phones before forks was like a mantra that this food's going to come out, everyone's going to take a photo, and then we're all going to share the meal and have that experience. And I think we did like maybe like summer 2017 through summer 2018, 10 or 12 different meetups over the course of a year and a half at all different types of restaurants, from fine dining establishments to the Absinthe Bar to boba tea spots. And yeah, and it really just like brought all these people together that might have known each other from Instagram or might have not, and it created a very unique community. I hear often from those group of people who are like, oh, like I made my lifelong friends through that group now. It was really amazing to see like, oh, that those meetups that we did like made an impact and positively impacted not only the restaurants but the attendees and help them find community too. It was really, really a special thing. And we haven't done it in a long time now. And the pandemic really stuttered that as well.
Since you were talking about your process of working with clients and things like that, what are some things that keep you inspired and motivated? Do you have any rituals or habits?
Yeah. So my New Year's resolution every year is to not have to go get a job. So it was December 2017. Like I got laid off from the job I had doing the door-to-door sales job. And I knew right away that I was like, all right, I'm going to pursue this Find Me in Seattle thing full time. And I just got to figure out like, what are the steps I need to do to like make it official. And I got to go get clients and all that. But I remember it being New Year's Eve, 17 to 18. And I was like, if in 365 days, if I didn't have to go get a job and I was able to pay all my bills, then like I should be very proud of myself and, be content with the success I had. And I say that to myself every year still, that if I can remain self-employed or build my own business and create my own lifestyle, then like I should feel very fulfilled like from accomplishing that. And so that's like really a big driver for me, is like, don't have to go get a job if you don't have to. Like be your own boss. But this creative, artistic approach to my life has been so fun. I just like see the world in so much more of an optimistic lens and a creative lens. Most people don't get to live their life and their work and get to be so creative and come up with new ideas. And I'm such an idea generative person that I get to like feed off that all the time. And so that like really makes me feel good about the work that I'm doing. And obviously the feedback from when those videos make impact on businesses, like that's, that fills my cup quite a bit, getting that kind of feedback with the positive impacts that my art is having on people. Like I get to create this art that not only is a fun documentary for me that I get to look back on in however many years, I'll be able to go back on all these videos that I've made in this year and been like, these are the things that were impactful to me in the year 2023, right? When I was 34 years old, like here's all the interesting things that I was doing, and here's the documentary of my life, while also having like positive business impact and positively impacting others and their businesses. Like that is so unbelievably rewarding that it helps waking up every day and being like, these are the things that I get to do.
Because content is like such a big part of your life, do you have conversations around content creation or businesses, like, at the dinner table, like with your wife, or like, in your day to day? Do you have a tendency to bring those topics out?
At the beginning, when I was starting my business, my friends and even my wife, it's a little like jarring and weird, right? Like, hey, Connor's got to like take a picture of the steak before we all eat it. And it becomes that joke. I've become very fast at doing that stuff now. But it did take a while for, especially like my closer circle, to understand like, oh, this is just what's going to happen. And having those discussions, are you okay with me taking a photo with you in the background or filming? And those are conversations I'm constantly having with everyone that I'm around. But yeah, especially my inner circle, they've seen the importance and the benefits from me doing that, right? Like, especially like the personal videos that I do with my wife. Like every year I do an end of the year review video of like all these adventures that we've been on. I always do a video about her every year. And just some of those like intimate memories, these end of the year reviews become the time capsule of our lives.
I'm so with you on that. It's like documenting is a huge part of my life as well. And, I mentioned to you, like, part of the reason for the podcast is like, it's kind of a way for me to like capture all my thoughts and like conversations with people at the time. Right. I used to write myself, I call them time machine letters to the future. And I had this 10-year-long project where I would write letters to me 10 years later. And every year I would do a recap of, all the thoughts and like things that I cared about.
As time goes on, I think I got this from Gary Vee also. He just talks about like the way that we're able to capture content is going to enshrine us in our family's history in a much different way. Like I can't go back and see who my parents were when they were on the cusp of their 30s to understand who they were, what they were thinking, what was important to them, what did they do. I don't have any of those things. And so I am always inspired. I don't have children yet, but I hopefully will one day. And I think about how interesting will that be for them to, when they're 30, have this piece of documentation to go back and be like, wow, like look at all the interesting things, or who my parents were when they were that age compared to, who they were later and what they know of whatever the future holds for us. And that legacy like has become very important to me. When my mom passed away, I realized I'd already been on this documenting journey, and the only video I have of my mom, of her talking, is of her. She stole my phone one day and we were at the bowling alley, and she was just like filming our whole family, and she says my name to get my attention, to look and like wave at the camera, and that's it. And like I have that one video of her saying my name, and that's pretty much like the only piece of content that I'll have of her voice. And so that like means the world to me now. But that like enshrined this idea of hopefully one day there's future generations of my family who will have some inkling to understand who I was, and hopefully my children, if I can provide them the life that I aspire to provide them, they'll understand how I got there, right? And all the things I do. They'll go watch this podcast maybe, or they'll listen to this podcast and be like, oh, like this is who he was when he was 34 and the things that he was doing in 2023. I'm continually inspired for like the future.
When you look back to whether it's like when you first started Find Me in Seattle, or just like looking through your 20s, what are some thoughts that come up? And like, would you do anything differently?
Do things differently. There are little moments where I would have treated people better. Like those are the things that weigh the most on me throughout my life that I reflect on. Is like, man, like I was such an a-hole to that person. I said things that I shouldn't have said. Those are mostly the things, was like, those are the things I did wrong. And hopefully those are lessons learned, and I'm better to my friends, my family, fellow humans in the future, and I make better, especially like on the spot decisions. Those are really like the things that I regret the most. And like I said earlier, like I'm very proud of the things individually I've accomplished, professionally that I've accomplished, because I very much stayed true to myself and pursued my own path.
So important.
When college and society talks about going to get a job, like I've really stayed true to be like, I'm going to do my own thing and stay true to me, because walking around with your phone and a yellow backpack is not what people would recommend that you do to start a business. It's very obscure. And when I was in my 20s, I think about the jobs. I graduated college. And I was a recruiter for like 18 months for an IT recruiting firm. And then I got let go from that company, and I went and I worked at the mall. Right. And it was like, at least it's with Microsoft. So, you know, it feels like it's tech or whatnot. And I met my wife there. Right. And so like, that's where I met Amanda. We were working at the mall together.
Okay.
And then over the next, 7 years, I went from working at the mall on contract as a seasonal worker to working with lots of different startups and small businesses. And the place that I was at the most was this company called Notice that was doing door-to-door advertising sales, working with small businesses. And only in hindsight, it became such a great decision, because the door-to-door sales work taught me some very invaluable lessons about convincing people to work with you. All right. And to pay you money for a service or a product in return. And I got so many reps over 5 years talking with thousands of local business owners, learning about their pain points. And I look back on that, it was just such a crazy decision. And like I was just broke. I was broke, and I was walking around the street every day meeting business owners. And it was crazy, but those are the things that you should do in your 20s. You should try a lot of things, try a bunch of jobs, find what you like and what you don't like, develop a level of self-awareness. What am I bad at? What are the things that I'm doing wrong? Like I said earlier, like noticing, oh, I've been treating people poorly. I said the wrong thing here. I was being mean. Reflecting on those moments, like, is the best thing you can do in your 20s, because I always say, like, if you're going to work to the traditional age of 65, because most of us aren't going to win the lottery or, sell $1 billion business, like, you got a long time, because by the time I'm 30, I still have 35 more years of work left. Right. So I'm still in the point at 34. Like, I don't feel like I'm in like my prime years. I have a lot to learn, a lot to grow, but I still have like another 30 years of like work to go. So I've been trying to be very patient. All right. Be patient with my career growth and reaching for specific goals and what I'm going to learn and understanding, like, it's going to take time to build all of these blocks.
Mm-hmm. That's why I really enjoy asking questions like, reflecting back on your 20s and things that you would do a little bit differently when you are in it. Like, you are in your early, mid, late 20s, you think that you are on some sort of like rush to succeed or rush to meet a certain like expectations and catch up with your peers or whatnot. So there's a lot of anxiety around like what you should be doing versus where you are at. Every time you're looking back, you just feel more at peace with like, oh, back then I didn't actually have to stress as much as I did because things do turn out like okay.
Things are hard, anxiety's high,
Mm-hmm.
life is really hard, life punches you in
Mm-hmm.
the face, but like
Yeah.
you're very resilient, right? You're very resilient, and you're going to learn, you're going to grow.
It's funny because like we don't think in that way. When you're in the moment, you're like, no, that's not the case. Like I gotta make the promotion. I gotta make this specific thing. So I loved hearing your reflection. Any advice for aspiring content creators who want to make an impact?
Capture as much as you can. What I tell everybody is you can't make more content if you don't capture the video first. Because at where we are at the moment, you can always do the narration and do the voiceover later. But if you didn't pull out your phone and capture the photo or capture the video, then it's really hard to go back and capture that. That's the first thing. The second thing that I would say is the best book that I've read about marketing is Gary Vee's The Thank You Economy. And what that book is all about is about the one-to-one interactions are the key to long-term success in doing this. Because if you're like, I want to be a content creator, but you're not in the long-term mentality of like, oh, I'm going to have to do this for a long time. This is about building a long-term brand for myself, for my business, whatever it is, right? If you don't have a 5 to 10 year outlook, it's going to be really hard. And the way you have to start is you have to talk to everybody. And Instagram, TikTok, whatever platform you choose is the best networking tool that we've ever had. Being true to yourself and creating your own style is the only way that you're going to be able to continue doing this long term.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Thanks for sharing all those insights.
I can talk for forever, so thank you for indulging me on this.
People follow you, Connor.
You can find me in Seattle, pretty much anywhere on the internet at Find Me in Seattle, whether it's on Threads, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. It's all right there at Find Me in Seattle. And the big thing is if you find me in real life, please say hi. Most likely I'll have a yellow backpack and my longer blonde hair. So if you identify me and you see me, please say hi in real life. That's like the coolest thing for me is when people are like, hey, like I know you from Instagram and we meet in person, and I'll make sure to give you a sticker. So everyone who finds me in real life gets a Find Me in Seattle sticker. So it's a fun little scavenger hunt. And yeah, I'd love to connect with anybody who's out there listening.
Thanks for listening to this episode. If you like what you heard, make sure to stay tuned for the next one. And if you have thoughts or questions to share, please connect with us on our Instagram handle, which is On the Cusp of 30 Podcast.